All right, today we are going to do part 2 of the Model Mineral Weathering Lab. We are going to look at weathering some chalk. So this is just like regular sidewalk chalk with some sand. So sand is what's going to be doing the weathering. First thing we need to do is we need to get our starting mass. And that's going to stay the same for all of our calculations because we're just going to see how much this weighs at the start of this whole lab. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my scale. And as usual, we always make sure it shows 0 grams first, and then I'll set my chalk on here. And my chalk is 12.81 grams. Okay, so I'm going to write that in my table. You can also write that in your table. 12.81 grams is a starting mass of our chalk. Now, I am going to be putting this piece of chalk into our sand and shaking it for 2 minutes. I'm not going to make you watch that whole thing, but basically just drop it in and shake so that the sand is hitting the sides of the chalk and rubbing against it to see how the weathering happens. So we'll shake this for 2 minutes and then we will come back and measure our mass again. All right, we have shaken our chalk for 2 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up and take our piece of chalk out. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at it. So what I noticed kind of as a difference from the first time, and I'll hold this up close to the camera here, is that there's a lot of these little tiny marks on it. Not sure that it's showing up on the camera. All these little marks along the surface that weren't there before. It was very smooth. The edges are kind of getting a little bit more rounded, but it looks a lot more like these like little air bubbles are starting to kind of show up on the piece of chalk. So we have that little bit of an observation, and then we're going to go ahead and weigh this again. I'm going to make sure my scale shows 0. Put my piece of chalk back down, and now it is 12.21. So that's my final mass for 2 minutes. So 12.21. So I wrote that there for my final mass for 2 minutes of shaking. So the next thing that you'll need to do is to calculate your change in mass. And to do this, we just take our starting mass minus whatever the final mass is. Okay, so I'll help you out by doing this first one with you. So we have 12.81 minus 12.21. So that change in mass was 0.6. Right, 12.81 minus the 12.21. That gave us 0.6. Okay, and you'll be doing that for all of these as we go through the lab. You'll be calculating the final mass, the change in mass by subtracting your starting mass minus your final mass. So I won't show you this again, but you will be doing that for all of these ones. So now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put the chalk back into our jar and shake it for another 2 minutes to get a total of 4. And then we'll come back and check in on our chalk's mass. All right, we have shaken our chalk for another 2 minutes, so a total of 4 minutes now. I'm going to go ahead and get it out of our jar again. Decided to fall pretty far down. All right, again, I'm going to look at it. And I'm noticing even more of these little like kind of air bubble looking marks on it. Okay, kind of see that it is looking, hopefully it's zooming in enough or focusing enough. Right, we have all of these little marks on the surface, even more, I think, than last time that I paused. The chalk very rounded on the edges. It was a lot sharper to start with. And all of the sides are getting those little kind of air bubble looking sort of marks. So that is what I am seeing here. We'll go ahead and get our mass again. So make sure the scale so it shows 0, and then I'm putting it on. And now we are down to 11.61 grams. 11.61 grams. Okay, so that was for our 4 minutes. Again, you will need to calculate this change in mass here. But our final mass for 4 minutes was 11.61 grams. Do this again for another 2 minutes of shaking in the sand, and we'll check back in then. All right, it's been another 2 minutes. So again, we will take out our chalk. And it seems to be even more rounded on these edges here, right? I'm noticing a lot of those little pot marks, kind of air bubble looking things on the surface, like I had mentioned before, covering pretty much every last part. And again, these edges are even more rounded. So it's getting rounder and rounder each time that we take it out. It seems to be kind of pretty evenly getting weathered. So there's not like one spot that's getting weathered more than another part of the chalk here. And we'll go ahead and get our mass now. So again, we'll make sure our scale shows 0. Put on the chalk. Whoops, needs to not roll off. There we go. Put on our chalk, and we are at 11.02 grams. 11.02 grams. Again, you'll have to keep calculating your change in mass. And then we'll just do this one more time for another 2 minutes. So we'll have shaken it for a total of 8 minutes after our next data point. So we will continue with that here. All right, we have shaken it for our final 2 minutes here. So we'll take it out of our jar for the last time. I noticed the jar is getting like really kind of dusty looking. So it's probably some of the chalk coming off. It doesn't look too much different other than everything's a bit more intense. So again, very rounded edges, even more so than last time. Getting all of these little pot marks, these little kind of air bubble looking things. They look even deeper than was before, right? So they're getting more extreme with each time that we've shaken it, because now we have shaken this for 8 whole minutes. So if you go back to the beginning of the video and look at the chalk, hopefully you'll be able to see a good difference. We'll go ahead and get our final mass here. So it's not going to roll away. We are at 10.37. 10.37 grams. All right, that is our final data point. Again, you need to fill in the rest of your change in mass calculations and complete the remainder of the assignment.